Hi, everybody. So, fun, interesting question to answer today. Someone posted this on one of my videos recently, and the question is, I listened to a podcast on mold toxicity, which suggested taking red rice yeast or red yeast rice, which is sometimes put either way, being a mycotoxin is not recommended for lowering LDL if mold is an issue. What are my thoughts about that? So, great question. There are I've heard from different clinicians, read in different sources that if there are products that are derived from mold, then if a person has an issue with mold toxicity or mold allergy, mold sensitivity, it might be a better idea to avoid that particular product. As far as red rice yeast extract goes, I'm not aware of that being a mycotoxin. So that's kind of one sort of side question, I suppose, as to whether is it actually a mycotoxin. Sometimes sometimes there are concerns that maybe things that are made from yeast or derived from yeast could be problematic when there's a mold issue afoot. So to be frank, I haven't heard that before. To be honest, I've prescribed red rice yeast many times for patients to help lower cholesterol levels, but I'm not 100% sure exactly. I've not heard of it being a mycotoxin, so it may be, it may not be. I'm not 100% sure. Need more information about that, I suppose. But the gist of this video, which I hope answers this question, and I think just broaches a bit of a broader topic, is it really, really important to avoid things that are derived from mold or yeast if a person has mold toxicity? As per usual, nothing that I'm saying should be construed as medical advice. This is for informational purposes only. If you need medical advice, please talk to your clinician about that. In my experience, it's been pretty rare for patients with mold toxicity, mold illness, to be really, really sensitive to all things that are derived from mold. There are a number of fairly common health products that are mold derived. There are certain B vitamins that are sometimes derived from mold. There are digestive enzymes that are derived from mold. There are citric acid, to my understanding, which, there's so many different citrates out there, magnesium citrate or potassium citrate, chromium citrate, like lots of minerals are citrated. Citrate can also be used, I believe, as a preservative in some products as well. To my understanding, a lot of citrate is derived from mold. And so with some patients, they're very, very sensitive to those things. I've had those patients in my practice over time, but I find that the vast, vast majority of patients are not sensitive to those things at all. And therefore, I recommend that they take them, and it doesn't seem to cause any obvious issue. I know that over the course of time, I've been exposed to a number of different clinicians, whether they've been lecturing or writing books or writing articles or just talking, like corresponding in some way. And sometimes they will say things like, "Oh, all patients with X, Y, or Z condition should avoid this or that," and it's always good. My brain says like, well, what's the evidence for that? Is it from published scientific evidence, or is it based on clinical experience? And I think both of those are valid, but it's where is it coming from? And then is it an all or nothing rule? And it may be that some clinicians are recommending to avoid X, Y, or Z product or supplement or treatment for a given category of patient, because some of those patients might have issues with it, and so therefore, just to be on the safe side, why not just avoid them in general, especially if there are easy to access alternatives. So it may be more of a matter of patients with mold toxicity, according to this podcast, person on the podcast, saying, well, avoid red rice yeast because why not just use something else to lower cholesterol if there's a history of mold toxicity, as opposed to, oh, it's definitely bad or definitely going to be a problem for everyone who has a history of mold illness or mold toxicity. So that would be my guess, because based on my extensive clinical experience working with folks who are suffering with mold illness, I've definitely found that there are that not all mold illness patients react to products that are derived from mold. So that's my experience. That's my answer. If there are any follow-ups to this and follow-up questions to this video, please feel free to post. Please feel free to post in the comment section below. I've been doing phone consults for like the last 8 hours, so I'm a little mush-mouthed here. So please feel free to post in the comment section below. And if there are any questions about any other topic, please feel free to post that as well.